as a community services officer in 1995. And what happened after you were a community service officer, and then what was the next?
So then I became a community service officer, then I was a part-time police officer. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? I'll turn it on.
You go.
So slight technical difficulties.
It's all right. I think so. There we go.
All right.
It's good. It's good you have Hugo.
Okay,
Thank
now,
you, Hugo.
now you can hear me. So great.
All right.
So after I was a community service officer, I became a part-time police officer, and then within a year, full-time police officer, and then worked my way through the ranks and pretty much held every position within the police department possible through investigations, and now as police chief for the last 12 years.
Wow. Now, how many people do you have in the police department?
So we have 28 sworn officers, 2 part-time officers, and then we also have 3 clericals. So total of 34 people in our department.
Has that grown since you've been here?
Yes, we started with 16, and when we took over police services for the city of Mound 7 years ago, we expanded, so now we're at our full capacity.
So you're covering with those officers from Orono to Mound to...
Spring Park and Minnetonka Beach.
Okay.
So
Which
14.
is kind of a big area with the lake.
It is. We have right around 32 square miles that we cover.
Right. So what are you seeing out there?
So we're seeing a lot, and that's where I brought a little bit here. We'll go through. Whoops, this is the old PowerPoint. So what we're seeing is we handle about 17,000 calls a year. That's through Priority 1, which requires emergency response such as medicals, through traffic stops, calls for information. So about 17,000 with 2,300 of those calls, meaning that we have to use lights and sirens to get to emergency response. So we're staying pretty busy.
And you have opioids up there, and we've all heard of the, quote-unquote opioid epidemic. Is there one?
There is. I mean, thankfully, we're seeing through education, we're seeing it turn a little differently, and those numbers sort of stabilize instead of increasing. But it doesn't take much. It's all around us. And some of the information that I have here to show you is that where we're seeing this is people are being introduced to it through prescription. When they get it from their doctors, they're being addiction. With this, 1 in 4 that cancer patients that receive these opioids for pain and other processes are seeing these addictions. Just in Hennepin County, as you can see it on the bottom there, 40% of our total jail population is related to opioid use, as well as 72% increase in child protection cases resulting from drug abuse. So it's in our community. We've seen a slight decrease, I think, because of some of the scare with overdoses and deaths related to that we're seeing a shift now from the opioids back to methamphetamines. So we're seeing that shift because you're not seeing a lot of pure heroin. It's being laced with synthetic fentanyl, carfentanil, that is more potent and cheaper because it's synthetic, easier to bring in. And that's where we're seeing the overdoses, because people that are using these, that are caught or addicted to prescription, they can no longer get the prescription drugs because of some tightening of regulations. So they're going to the street to get the synthetic. It's a little bit cheaper, and we're seeing that, but we're also seeing the scare because of the overdoses. Last year for our department, we had 4 saves. So we carry the Narcan, which is the sort of, when people go into an overdose, we can give that to them, and it brings them out of that overdose situation where they're not breathing, and they can come back. So last year, like I said, we had 4 that we brought back, and we also had 2 deaths related to overdoses, so within our communities.
Wow. And people who are on opioids, do they act in such a way? I mean, my thought is that, wow, I would watch out for somebody like that, but how would I know?
You don't. I mean, they're walking among us. I mean, it's like anything else with the prescription drugs that we have here. People are using them, and you may not notice the addiction, just like we don't notice a lot of times with alcoholism and other addictions. We may not notice it. So that's the difficult part. So a lot of what we're trying to do in Hennepin County, Sheriff Stanek started that program now Sheriff Hutchinson is promoting that once again is what can we do as a community to help with this? There's legislature that we're trying to push to have take-backs at the pharmacy. So when we have pharmacies that issue these prescription drugs, that individuals, and you'll notice years ago when you went in for a prescription, say you had a tooth pulled, they'd give you a prescription maybe 7 to 10 days for a painkiller. And a lot of those had opioids that were part of that. You maybe took 1 or 2 days after that, you put it in your medicine cabinet. Or you see some of those, and I don't have the slide with me, but the statistics show that if you are on it for 10 days, every day beyond that 10th day, it increases your chance of being addicted by multiple folds. So we're seeing these addictions happen very quickly from prescription drugs that are being prescribed to you. So what we're trying to push now is to have that, and one of the slides, this is hard to see. This is some of the deaths that have been related to across the country. And you can see on that one, the large red, that's with the heroin and fentanyl. And those were up until 2014. We have some here where the projections, you can see the increased, and this is all on the Hennepin County websites. I'll go through these pretty quickly. But what we're trying to do is work with the disposal of those.
Oh,
No.
yeah, we can try that. Okay. You want to do the second handheld mic?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. There we go.
Thank you, Stacy.
Get situated back
Yeah.
here. So,
Come on back.
but where am I? So what we're trying to do is work with these and try to get the drugs, especially prescription drugs, out of your medicine cabinets, out of the areas that we can do that. So each year we work with the DEA on a drug take-back. So if you want to write this down, it's on our website. April 27th, when City of Orono has their cleanup days,
Right.
spring cleanup, where you can bring, we'll also have a station there for your prescription drug, we call it drug take-back. No questions asked. Whatever you have in your medicine cabinet, whether it be liquid, pill, what other patches, bring it in. Dispose of it. We put it in boxes. We don't look at the labels. We don't care. We put it in a box, we seal it, and we bring it up to the incinerator, dispose of it. We also have drug pouches, deactivation pouches at our office. So if you have smaller quantities, stop by. If you don't want to wait to the annual cleanup, so to speak, bring it by our office. We have pouches that handle up to about 60 pills. You open the pouch, pour the pills in, add water, and it deactivates it so that you can throw them into your trash safely so it doesn't leach into our water system, into landfills. And that's a good way to always not wait. We also have drug drop boxes at Ridgedale Court and at Water Patrol on Shoreline Drive in Spring Park. So what we're trying to send the message is if you have it, get rid of them as soon as possible. One of the examples that I used several years ago is that we had an individual that's parent died of cancer. And they brought in, if you remember the old Tupperware bowls, the real deep ones that are about 8 inches deep,
Yeah.
about 2 feet, 24 inches diameter, it was overflowing with individual pills that were dumped in there because they cleaned the cupboards. We've had people bring grocery bags. And what we try to tell people is don't wait. Don't wait till your annual cleanup. If you have some, immediately stop by our office. We'll give you as many bags as you need, or we will not take them. We'll give them, but then we'll also direct you to either Spring Park. But like I said, with the spring cleanup coming up, as you're ready, getting stuff out of your garages for spring and your yards, also remember that we have the drug take back. Trying to see what else is here. So this is some of the opioid-related deaths that we've had. This is the amount, this is kind of interesting that we collect. So this is Hennepin County-wide. So when we first started this in 2012, we were collecting about 5,300 pounds of medication collected. In 2017, 2,100. Last year, just our department alone had about 400 pounds of prescription drugs and other things that were dropped off. So it makes an impact. It does have an impact on our communities for getting rid of those. And there it is. From 10 till 2, April 27th at Orono Public Works. So bring those back.
And what you're saying is leaving it in your medicine cabinet is an opportunity for someone else.
It's an opportunity for individuals to come up that may have addiction, relatives that you may not know. If you're showing your house, we see reports of this, houses for sale. When you're showing a house, if you leave prescriptions, people go in at a showing or an open house and go through the medicine cabinets. So there's always opportunity. What we're trying to do is tell people, remove that opportunity, so those that do have an addiction, you take it away from that point.
Yeah, okay, all right. What other kind of crimes or activity you've been seeing that we as homeowners and residents can be watchful for?
Yeah, so thank you. Within the last 10 days, we've had 3 attempted burglaries and actually had 1 burglary of residential properties. So if you have an alarm system, please use it. Especially now over spring break, a lot of people are gone from the neighborhoods. Keep an eye out on your neighbor's house. Keep an eye out for suspicious vehicles. If you see something that looks out of the ordinary, don't be afraid to call. Like I said, we've had 3 where rocks were thrown through windows and sliding doors to gain entry. On those 3, the alarms went off, so they were able to leave without any further intrusion or loss. The one that we did have where a rock was thrown through the back window, they had an alarm system. They did not use it for that because for whatever reason it was not in use, and they had a loss of jewelry and some other items from their house. So really be vigilant on what's going on. Don't be afraid to call if you see something suspicious, a vehicle, somebody out of the ordinary that's looking around. We had about 2 weeks ago, we had a good call where a neighbor was watching an individual's house knowing that they were gone. They saw a strange vehicle. Luckily, he was out there, he had his phone, and he zoomed in, got a license plate number, got a picture of the individual driving. We were not able to get down there in time because once they saw the individual taking pictures, they left the area. The plates came back stolen out of a dealership in Burnsville, but we were able to, with facial recognition, identify the individual driving. So there wasn't a loss or a burglary on that. However, the individual that we had facial recognition has 3 warrants out of different counties for burglary. So we weren't able to capture him. However, because of the involvement of the community and helping us, because we can't be every place all the time, and even when we are, it's about 4, we can get around pretty quick, but sometimes it can be up to 4 or 5 minute response time, so we rely on neighbors helping us out. There again, don't get involved. If they're trying to drive away, don't stop them. But you know, it was just snapping a few photos from a distance that helped us, and now, like I said, we know who that individual is, we have identified him, and we sent that out, and we can send information to our neighboring communities as well. With the springtime, we see a lot or a rash of individuals going through cars. So take your personal items with you when you stop for the evening, go in, lock your doors, don't leave your purses, laptops, cameras, cell phones in your vehicles. That's what we see a lot of opportunity where they'll go through park their car in one area and just go from house to house to house, going through cars, checking if there's a door open. If there is, they'll sort of rummage through, see if they can find anything. So this time of year, like I said, just make sure that you lock your doors, take your valuables with you inside your house.
What about marijuana?
Good question. So that's what we're seeing a lot, and I'll get to some of this. So we're seeing marijuana, we're seeing a lot of the edibles coming up from other states that are legal in other states that are being brought back, but what we're also seeing is this THC cartridges, so the vapors, but they're THC. And
what's THC called?
So that's the active ingredient that gets you high from the marijuana.
Okay.
And what we're seeing is that these cartridges, and what does that packaging look like? You think that 40 or 50-year-old couple are going to be purchasing these? What do those look like? They're marketed towards kids. So fruity flavors, ice cream cones, gelato, looks like Skittles. So these are the cartridges that the pen, it looks like a larger ballpoint pen, and they're vaping devices. And the THC, so these are 1 gram cartridges, but the THC level is about 95%. So very potent. And there again, we're seeing a lot of these. You can order them on the internet, have them sent up here. Yes, it's illegal. However, we're seeing them, shipped to PO boxes. We're seeing them shipped to other addresses in states that are illegal. Then they bring it up here, and we're seeing an influx or a large increase in the use of these vaping. Some of the other things that we're seeing. So this is from our drug task force took down a local dealer. So this is in our community that we took. All the pills that you're seeing there are ecstasy. So the blue, orange pills. On the lower right, you can see the sort of that brown substance. That's it's called Molly. So it's the pure ecstasy, the MHDA that's in there. So that's the pure form. The pills usually are mixed with other synthetics for ecstasy. So we're seeing a large influx with the ecstasy. And I thought was interesting is, who does that look like? Looks like Donald. So people have their own unique characteristics that they make their pills, and this was one that I thought was kind of neat. Another increase that we're seeing is the oil and wax, marijuana wax. So what individuals are doing is you take the green leafy portion of the marijuana that probably we're used to seeing, or if anybody's had contact with marijuana you're used to seeing, they're taking and pouring butane over it to extract the THC out. So now you have this liquid substance. They then put it into a crock pot, other form of device, so that it can dry it out, and the result of this is the THC wax. And then they put this in their vaping devices and use that as a vaping. And there again, don't write this down, please. This is how to do it, but some instructions. But it's not, I mean, how people can think of this, but it's very, I shouldn't say easy, it is a process, but individuals are they're making it unique and harder to discover. So different ways of doing it, and we're seeing a lot more of the wax that's coming up. So, not yet.
How much is something like that to buy? I don't know, say the ecstasy.
The ecstasy, depending on the tablets, can be anywhere from $5, $10 to $20 tablet, depending on the demand. It's pretty prevalent. Usually it's a nightclub.
What is it?
It's a long name that I can't pronounce. The MDMA. It's a synthetic. I mean, not a synthetic drug, but it's used. It came on. It's known as the nightclub. So the kids would go partying. They would hand these pills out with the flashing lights. It just enhances your senses, so that when they have at the clubs with the strobe lights, the music, the neon, all that, it just sort of intensifies that feeling and that high. And so people are popping these pills, and when they go into the club, 1-2 pills at these nightclubs and going in. So it's really a teen or kid experience. Not that adults can't use it, but it's more marketed towards those younger kids.
Hi, thank you. I keep hearing you say we're seeing this. I'm wondering, where are you seeing? I've heard some terrible stories about Orono High School and how the kids are actually vaping and smoking right at the high school on a day-to-day basis. Here at the Wolfsfeld Woods behind us, down at the Long Lake Beach, where are you seeing this sort of thing, and what can you do when you see it?
It's difficult because we can't be everywhere. However, that's where we rely a lot on the public. People at Trinity call often when they see vehicles and kids going in there. We've actually sent people and our investigators to watch. It's hard catching people. The vaping, and there again, Aaron's not here from earlier from the school. They just had a discussion on e-cigarettes, vaping. We're not seeing as much in our communities with the vaping inside the school. I'm not. A lot of our officers are not. Doesn't mean that it's not going on there. It's just difficult because it's like anything else. They're not going to do it out in public. They're going to try the bathrooms area, public area maybe they're sneaking into. Once we identify a spot, we'll watch that spot, but there again, if they know we're watching it, they find different areas. We don't see a lot of it as other communities do, but it is in our communities.
Yeah, and Mary, we call because somebody will be back by the woods and they'll say, oh, there's somebody in the woods, and I'll call Correy, like, hey, and every time they peel out just as I've called them. I mean, it is like a joke, right? Isn't it, Correy?
Is quick.
Corey's like, Jerry, stop it.
And what we're seeing, we're not seeing a lot of the tobacco products either, because it's hard to find and go purchase those at the stores, because what do? You have to card, you have to get ID. Same thing with alcohol. We've taken that out because the businesses do very well at not selling to minors. However, we're seeing it other ways. A lot of this THC, you can, like I said, you can order this stuff on the internet. You can order a vaping kit on the internet and get the vaping solution and tobacco solution sent to your house. So we're telling parents, monitor what your kids are receiving. And I was telling a story that my kids order things on Amazon all the time, a piece for their bicycle, something to repair things. monitor what's coming in the mail and don't assume that it's just a bicycle part. Maybe you have to open up if your 16, 17, 18-year-old is getting an item constantly and you don't know what it is. Recognize that it could be some of those items. Have a conversation with your kids. I think that's the main part, is knowing what's going on, having a conversation, letting them know that you're aware of this stuff. And it's a tough conversation, but you need to have that to get more information and to learn what's going out there, and it's constantly changing. To try to keep up with the new trends is very difficult.
Questions, guys?
Of these arrests that you've had in our community, have they all been kids or have they been adults? Like, are you seeing it happen in adults as well?
We're seeing adults, but we're also seeing 17, 18-year-olds that are selling some of these items at their house. And there again, how we come along this is we'll make a traffic stop for whatever reason. We'll make a traffic stop. We maybe find some items in the vehicle that's prohibited, contraband, illegal. We then go further up to the source and try to find the dealers. And we're lucky to have a drug task force that works, and we work with Hennepin County, who's part of that. We don't stop at community lines and boundaries for our cities. We take it where the sources go. So we've gone to California, we've gone to New Mexico, to Colorado, following these sources, and these individuals that watching this stuff come in, and we're finding large quantities. Last year alone, our drug task force took off 80 pounds of methamphetamines. 80 pounds. And you think that would have an impact on the metro area? It doesn't. Other communities are taking off just as much. And when I say those 80 pounds, that doesn't mean that it was taken off here. The source, we follow, like I said, follow the source. We work with State Patrol, and we take off the bus that people bring it as they're entering Minnesota. But that has impact on our communities. We're seeing marijuana yet. We're seeing methamphetamine is coming back big time, and we're also seeing the prescription drugs that are being sold. So.
Thank you. I've lived in Orono for 14 years and generally feel pretty safe. I've heard that the city of Orono is one of the safest communities in the state. A couple years ago, I think we were rated #1. That's just, I can't substantiate that. That's all just hearsay. I read the newspapers a lot and I see 0 for police reports, and I look at other communities and I see constant police reports. So I'd like to hear your comment on that, why we don't report the ongoing newspaper statistics.
So we do report the arrests that we make. A lot of these cases we won't arrest or put information as to some of these low-level drug dealers that are being caught due to the fact that they're working with us. So we want to go after their sources. If we put their names and information, we still are ranked very high in safe communities. That's to say we are, but this affects all of our communities. It doesn't mean that it's an unsafe place. We do our best, and every community has burglaries, every community has thefts, every community has drugs. And to think that you don't, however, we deal with it well, we go after those sources, we make arrests, and those statistics, they all come from the FBI, so we all submit our statistics. So it shows that we're a safe community, but we're also very proactive, and there again, reactive and proactive, where we go after those sources. So it is a safe community. However, it also is a community that it's 15 minutes from downtown Minneapolis. We have a great interstate that brings people out here, and luckily before County Road 6 was redesigned, that stoplight was the first stoplight when you came out on Highway 12. Now it continues further out west. So we're seeing the activity push further and further. But it's an easy commute for bad people to come out here to commit crime in an environment that has nice homes, lots of property, and it's sort of rich for the community. So did I answer your question? Yeah, we put our arrests. We don't put a lot of little blurbs as to every case that we do. We can work on that. And we try to do that on our Facebook. So if you follow us on our Facebook, we try to put more blurbs on that. We see like in print, there's not as much activity in print form that people are following it. So we're trying to combine and find out what is a good feel. So we're trying to use more Facebook. However, it takes a lot of resources to get the information and keep up on that. So we're working on it. So thank you. I'll take that. I'll let our office know.
So a recent public opinion survey showed that 70% of the public approved of recreational use of marijuana, and the interesting fact in the survey was that 52% of Republicans approved of it, which suggests that it'll probably be approved federally sometime in the next few years. What's your opinion on the impact of that?
So I've been watching and reading a lot of the reports coming out of Colorado due to the fact that it's been several years. So we're seeing some of the impact from that. And if you really dig down into the true facts, how I bring it up is we're seeing a lot where over-the-road truckers, because there's drug testing. So even if it's recreational, you take teachers and doctors, is it okay for them to have, go out on a weekend and for recreational purposes, go out and get high and now come in and treat you or teach your kids? How do you do that and react to individuals where you want some work done on your house with a contractor and knowing that they can go on their lunch break and smoke and get high and now come back and do the work? What we're seeing is a lot of those reports is that when they first started out, they're saying, hey, there's great tax opportunities and income. But what you also see is that I believe Colorado's, for every dollar that they take in on a tax, is $4 to treat the addiction and treatment and some of the social problems that they're having through the court system with related to that. We have a huge problem still with alcohol and DWIs. Last year, our department arrested 104 DWIs for alcohol. The hard part is we have a preliminary test that we can test you for alcohol on the side of the road. There's not one for marijuana. Marijuana can stay in your system for 30 days. How do you have a presumptive test to identify that immediately to show that you are impaired under the influence? So I agree with you. I think it's going to be within a few years. However, I ask people to really do the research and understand that it's more than just recreational and for that purpose and the impact that it truly does have on our community. And I still say that the marijuana is still a gateway drug. You start off on marijuana, it leads you to other things. Now, there again, people use it for medical, they use it for pain relief. Don't have a problem with that, but if you're smoking it, using it, and we're seeing these edibles that are coming up from different states that, you can have a donut, a cupcake, a lollipop, gummy bears that are all these THC gummies to get high, and there again, all the marketing is towards kids. It's Homer Simpson packaging, different things, it's all related towards kids. So, did I answer your question? Not a big fan, because I think there's other social applications to it that it's going to be huge difficulty to enforce and with the level of impairment when you're driving.
I just have a comment. Our daughter lives in Colorado, and our grandsons are in their early 20s, but she is just totally opposed to having marijuana be recreational or, like they're proposing in Minnesota now. But she said that, just as you said, the bake shops look like a bakery, but, the goodies all have marijuana in them, and she just thinks it's a terrible decision. And then I have another question. I read in the paper so much about methamphetamine and how it's inexpensive but very dangerous, but I don't even know what it is, actually.
It's a combination of different drugs, chemicals, you name it. They used to take Sudafed, take the active ingredients in Sudafed, mix it with battery acid, lye, different chemical compounds, dry it out and crystallize it and use it. What we're seeing now, almost all of it is coming up from Mexico. Coming across the borders and in pounds, hundreds of pounds at a time. And when you look at some of the statistics for Minnesota, if you go to the DEA website and look at some of the statistics of the methamphetamines that are coming up here and that are being taken off in the hundreds of pounds, it's pretty drastic, and you're right, it's cheap. We're seeing it here in Minneapolis, and we feel that it's a distribution point going further to Chicago, that this is a main distribution point where it's coming in because of the quantities that we're seeing and it's being sent out. But it is fairly cheap because they're trying to sort of get back into the market, and be cheaper than heroin because of the scare, and we're seeing a flood in the market with the methamphetamines.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's yucky stuff, isn't it, Carol?
My great concern is for the safety of parishioners here at church, and a couple of your officers came out last year after we had a lockdown in the schools, and a couple of your folks came and did a wonderful job of helping us to understand what we need to do in case of an active shooter, someone that's come into the congregation. And as a result of that, I don't know if you know who Kevin Randolph is. Kevin is a lieutenant up in Crosby and is now moving back into the area. And he has been studying actually a ministry at Saddleback Church in California where parishioners are doing a kind of a security thing on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights and various other times when the church is busy. And so what we're doing is we're hoping to, he's hoping to, have a ministry that would be understated, but also be helpful for us on like a Sunday morning. We can't lock these doors. And so if there's some suspicious activity or something that's happening, we have people that are trained that can help us with those kind of scenarios. Plus we have a lot of children down in the lower level, with Sunday school. So we're hoping to raise some funds to get Kevin to go to a conference for churches and security with churches in San Diego, and that's going to be in June. But I wanted to thank you for making us aware as a department about the issues of safety and on a Sunday morning or whenever we're busy here. So appreciate all the work you're doing.
And I think you're doing it right. When I came in between services, I was immediately greeted, welcomed, and I think that's a good start to security because people want to come in if they're going to do bad things. They want to come in unseen or have a surprise. As soon as people walk through the door feeling that greeting, I think you're on the right track.
Great. Thank you.
Corey, on a much less serious but day-to-day item, people who don't use their lights when it's raining, or people who are driving holding on to a cell phone. I asked another officer one day why he doesn't stop people when it's raining and they're not using their headlights. It's so dangerous. And he looked at me and said, "Would you want to be out there in the rain stopping those people?" What do we do here in Orno
Not the right
about
answer. And that's what we're seeing a lot with the technology is really hurting us in cars because you have a lot of the auto headlights. So those come on, people turn it off so they assume that they're on, not recognizing that they're not on. We see it all the time too where they put it on the auto. They'll be driving around at night, they have headlights, no taillights because it's their daytime running lights. So technology is really hurting us. And the last few years, you're right, this spring with all the rain and snows that we've had, my guess would be about 50% of the cars were using their headlights. I mean, it was drastic how it is. And we stop a lot of people. We don't write a lot of tickets just because it's an awareness. People don't even realize that they're not on. They thought they were on. We do stop, but there again, if it's raining a lot, we're looking at it, and that's where the officer goes, well, is it worth getting out, getting soaked for just the headlights? And so, yeah, in the distracted driving, I'm hoping, and we're seeing it go through the legislative committee with the hands-free, because I truly think that's where we need to go to. Almost all of our accidents that we go to involves some sort of distraction when it's caused in the crash. And yes. I mean, before, people used to flash your lights to give the people warning and things like that. Now, people don't even have a clue what that is. I have a 15-year-old that gets his license in a week, and we were talking about that same thing, going, make sure your headlight's on. I go, do they teach you that, when you have your headlights on, do you flash when your high beams are on to let people know? Do you turn your lights on and off to let the oncoming traffic know that their headlights aren't? He goes, I don't know what you're talking about, Dad. We don't talk about that. So, I mean, it's difficult when we're trying to enforce such a thing. And, even the news media, I mean, you heard it on the radio all the time this spring. Turn your lights on. Almost all these snowstorms, people were talking, almost every radio station you turned on, turn your headlights on. And I just don't understand why people don't. You're right. You're probably right. We're not
listening.
streaming it. Gotta get Pandora or something like that, or whatever some of those other ones are.
So, my question kind of relates to the sort of well-publicized phenomenon around the country of distrust in law enforcement that we've seen in the last few years. I'd be interested in your take on that, and I guess I would add that I've admired the way you and your officers have really gotten involved in the community and done a lot of positive things and interaction with people, and I think that's probably the answer to dispelling that. But I'm just curious for your thoughts on your personal experience with that, and whether there's other things that we can be doing as a society to
Yes. So when we took on the police service Mount, that was one of the areas that we really focused on. As we developed into a larger police department, we had more resources. We really wanted to make a positive impact, engage our community. And if you look at some of even our statistics for some of the activities that we were doing related to traffic, they went down a little bit. Because we said, you know what, we're going to focus on community engagement. And what does that mean? That means meeting with businesses, churches, different groups, joining different memberships, joining the Rotary Club, being a part of the Chamber of Commerce, being part of that, doing more, and then looking outside the box too. So we look at our newest officer to the department is Xerxes, our canine, our therapy community service dog. You know, how can we build a relationship going into that? Because you're right, is having that positive interaction with our community, so when stuff does happen in our community, in and around the community where it's maybe negatively impacts law enforcement, we have a positive image. We have those contacts with individuals that can say, no, that's not our police department. Our police department does things a little differently. I don't think if those situations occurred here, that would be handled in the same situation that's negative. So it's having those positive interactions before and having those interactions as part of ingrained in the department, so when things do happen in our nation, in society, we come out a little bit on top, and we can have these communications, these conversations with people, and we're open. And that's, I mean, I don't know where we are on time, but can you see that? Didn't come up. My email and number, if you have questions, please call and have these. I mean, we love coming out and having conversations. We have a crime prevention specialist that'll come out to your home, your business, walk you through, tell you about security systems, pros and cons, different things you can do to make your home and business maybe a little bit more secure, a little bit safer. But we have, you know, SROs in the schools dealing with the kids. We have a robust police force that is involved heavily in community engagement. So if you know of something where we can do things better, let us know. If we're doing something wrong, let me know. I'm the face of this department, and therefore anything that bad happens in the department, it's my responsibility. I'll take the credit for the good things, but I also take the criticism for anything that happens. And I love having these conversations, so both positive and negative. If you see something that's in our community, please reach out, contact me, contact somebody at our office, because we are here. We want to build a better community, and it's through those partnerships.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for coming today. Next week we're going to have a great volunteer celebration shift with Kim Froggatt and Greg Van Buren and Mark Strobel. So you'll be sure to want to make it. Thanks.